Heidi, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey Josh, yeah, thanks for having me. Good to be here.
We have a small crowd in the studio today. It's a smattering of applause for you. So I was stumbling through LinkedIn as I often do, and I see this post of some brave soul posting her cold call, and it was Heidi. And I was so impressed by this call on so many levels that I asked her to jump on the podcast to talk to me, and she graciously said yes. So thank you so much, Heidi, for jumping on today.
Yeah, I'm super happy to. I mean, yeah, it's the Outplay was asking me for a call for a long time. They do their call of the week, and I finally had one. I was like, oh, hey, I actually have a recording of this one. Check it out. And I was sort of surprised it just came through in an email, and then people started messaging me. Like, I was like, oh, okay, cool. So, yeah, it's fun. It's fun to actually have a call that you can share like that.
Now we're going to go through the call in a moment, step by step. But before I do, the call sounded so smooth and so relaxed. Was it started cold calling, or is that something you've stepped into?
Yeah, it's tough. When I first start cold calling for, I mean, right now I work at an agency, so we have different clients, or when I start at a new role, it's rocky at first. I kind of go with whatever script they may have, and then just go from there. And eventually my style kind of comes out, which is more relaxed, that you'll hear in this call. But it's a journey for me. I have to get there intuitively and figure out what makes sense for me, and yeah, it starts off with me kind of sounding a bit maybe more typical and overly excited, to kind of figure out where I'm at, and then once I'm comfortable, then I can fully grasp how to use the way my style is, which is very casual and conversational. So it's a process for me to get there. I think I not all my calls are great. I usually start off pretty bad whenever I'm jumping into something new. But yeah, I would say that I just go I go with how everyone else is doing it at first, and then I eventually arrive around here.
You sound just chill to me. I mean, I just met in a conversation, and I was wondering like what the real Heidi sounds like versus the Heidi on the cold call that I heard, and it sounds remarkably similar. In life, outside of cold calling, are you normally this sort of chilled? I mean, you sound like a yoga studio instructor, not a CrossFit instructor. You sound very relaxed.
I
Go
mean,
into a
I'm a
meditative
West
state on this
Coast
call.
girl. Yeah, I'm a West Coast girl. I'm in Portland, Oregon, and I think most salespeople tend to be more the East Coast style, so maybe that's what it is. But yeah, I'm pretty relaxed person. I like to be pretty chill. I mean, I have, definitely sometimes I get excited and passionate about things, but I try to, yeah, just be natural and just be human when I'm doing sales, because it's not fun otherwise. I can't, I get burnt out too quickly if I'm, pushing too hard and trying to be somebody I'm not. So I'm
Mm.
typically about like this, pretty relaxed, pretty chill person.
Someone double crosses you, and then you can cut a bitch. I'm assuming. Then
Oh
the
yeah, I
crazy
mean,
Heidi.
yeah,
Okay,
I mean,
okay,
of
okay.
course.
So let's start by talking about intent. I know if anyone's been following me for a while, everyone knows I'm real big on like, what's your intent going into the call? Before you pick up the phone, what's kind of going through your mind from a intent perspective?
Trying to find out if what we have is a fit for a problem or pain they may have that I don't know if they have or not. So curiosity, trying to figure something out, trying to learn something. I had a sales manager that told us like always make sure you get a win on every call. Like if you learn something, have a whatever, have a joke, have a laugh, like whatever is your style. But I try to just learn something, have a win, and find out more information, and just get somewhere and make sure it ends on a positive note.
One thing that you said, I really want to zoom in on this a little bit and double click because it's very subtle, but it's very important, is you didn't say to book a meeting with everyone. What you said is curious to see if, and the key word here being if, the prospect has a potential problem that we might, and these are your words, might be able with. And I think, and maybe you can elaborate on this, when your intent isn't to assume, when you come at this from a place of curiosity, not, but when you sort of let go of assumptions. Of course, you have a hypothesis. Of course, you believe in what you're selling, but you don't know. But when you start the call like that, it seems like it would make the call much more relaxed because you don't have really any expectations of the get. Is that in line? See it as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you're working in these types of roles and doing outbound, you really can't have high expectations on any one call, one email, one action. I think that you have to, you want a positive response in some manner, or just a reply sometimes, or just a connection, or just a conversation. So that's really what I'm after, is a conversation, just that back and forth, and it's overall fairly pleasant, and we end up, somewhere. And some of those turn into meetings, sure, but I have no idea until I'm talking with them whether it's even relevant to them, whether it fits, what they need, whether, I'm way off base. So I try to give them sort of every out in a way, because I tend to book better meetings that way. So I'm not, I'm asking them, if I'm almost like giving them so many outs like that, it's like might seem counterintuitive to some people, like, oh, you're not pushing through, you're not like just sending them a calendar link like right away, and like, all this crazy stuff that people will tell you to do. And I'm like, yeah, because I mean, I want quality meetings with people that are going to show up, that are actually, interested and have some problem that we could potentially solve. So that's my overall mindset, is just trying to find out more.
So if I understand you correctly, you don't take no for an answer. You take no for an answer 9 times. Keep going. You keep pressuring them. No, you're there. So there's actually a lot of neuroscience that backs up what you're saying. And 2 things to just note here is that when your intent is to let go and not attach yourself to the outcome, you behave in ways that don't feel like pressure on the prospect. And when prospects feel pressure, they sort of pull away. When your intent is, I got to talk everyone into buying and booking a meeting, it actually changes your behavior. Your thoughts affect your behavior. The other thing that you said that I thought was really insightful, and this again backed up by a lot of things about how people tick, not necessarily sales, is that when you give people an out, when you make it easy for them to say it's not a fit, you actually lower resistance and you end up getting to more truth. And I think truth is the superpower especially when there's this dynamic between a salesperson who, let's all face it, we have a bad rep for many reasons, a lot of them. And so being able to lower resistance and get to more truth is a superpower in a call, because most calls, they sound like this. Wrestling match, where someone's sort of like fighting someone and like beating them up, trying to pin them down. And what I noticed as we listen to your call, Heidi, is it sort of sounds like a smooth ballroom waltz, where you are guiding people without really expecting anything and not stepping on any toes. So let's actually take a listen to your call. There's not going to be any of this kung fu fighting here. It's just a real smooth call. I'm going to sort of pause it along the way. We'll come in and out of the call. Pay attention to not just what Heidi is saying, but also listen to the tonality, which more than the words. It's a vibe. And again, it feels like a yoga studio versus that's very relaxed. So let's actually start the call. Here we go. Okay, let's start with that one. That's a big bone of contention on LinkedIn. Boy, do people have a perspective on that. How's your Friday going? Why do you ask that question? I'm assuming it's intentional.
Yeah, because it's something I would naturally do if I was calling a friend. It's something that's so natural to me, and then I can kind of get their vibe, what mood they're in immediately. If they, if they're like, yeah, great, how about you? Then that's super friendly, right? If they're like, what's this about? Then you kind of just like get to the root of like where they're at. I think quicker, and it's just natural to me to say that. If I called my friend, I would ask them how their day's going. That's just what I say. If you don't say that, then don't use it. Like if that's not something you would ever naturally say, don't do it. But since I do, I tend to do that. And especially like Fridays, it's kind of like it's a casual kind of more, chill day. People are like, yeah, it's going good. It's a vibe. So I like small talk, so I do it most of the time, unless I intuitively get the vibe that like they're not going to be down with that. Like, but his tone of voice when he answered was so chill, that I was like, this guy's pretty chill. Like, I can kind of ask him how his day is going and like see how he's feeling and just kind of get into it.
So I love that. Couple things you said there. One is it feels good for me. So if it didn't feel good for you, if this doesn't feel, then maybe don't do it. I think what Heidi's saying, and I think it's really simple, but a lot of people overlook it, which is what's the way? And it sounds like there's not really a way. You have your own style. Like Heidi has a style that you're going to hear when we get into this call. It's her style, just like a great guitar player, Eric Clapton, has a style. You know when you're listening to his music that that's a Clapton song or an Eric Knopfler song or Mark Knopfler song. So you have this style. The other thing, too, that I love about what you said was you're sort of using this as a way to read the prospect's mood a little bit. As even when he first picked up the phone, oh, I've got a friendly here, I don't have a hostile. And so all things being equal, I'm just going to use my standard opener, which is what I would say to normally anybody. Why would I want to change it when I'm making calls? Because again, my whole thing is I just want to be me, I want to be casual, I want to be chill. So the prospect leaned into this, and we're going to go a little deeper into the call. Okay, so you're asking for the prospect's permission to talk, even though they picked up the phone, having a good Friday. What's the psychology behind that? What are you hoping to, why is that intentional first? And if it's intentional, why are you asking permission to talk?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of heard a little bit of background noise, I think, on the call on this one. So I wanted to be sort of aware and, intentional and let them know that I kind of heard that, something may be going on. And then, kind of ask for permission. Since he seemed so relaxed, I figured he would probably give it. And it was going to just be a better conversation that way than me trying to push something. It just, that vibe wasn't there. It was more like, yeah, you got a minute kind of a thing, which people may or may not agree with. But in this situation, it seemed supernatural. And again, something I might say to a friend too, if I was calling them and I kind of heard something in the background, I might be like, yeah, can you talk right now? I mean, it's really pretty natural. People can overthink it, but it's something that most people would say when they call anybody. They just want to know if it's good to talk or not.
Yeah, there's also some, well, too, like when you're giving someone control, right? So first off, when people feel like you're giving them control, they feel more autonomous, sort of take the control away and you assume it's a good time to talk. You can raise resistance.
Yeah.
The next thing there that you do is when they say sure, they're likely to hear you out for a few more moments because they sort of agreed to do something. And humans are sort of hardwired that if we say we're going to do something, up our word. Otherwise, it feels a little weird. Like if I said I'm going to help you move at 6:30 and I don't show up until 7, it feels bad. Like this podcast is a good example. Told Heidi I'd be on at 3 o'clock, on at 3:10, felt bad. The same kind of thing here. All right, so let's go to the next little bit of the call here. See where it goes from here.
Can you turn it up a little bit or something? I can't really hear it very well.
Can't hear it that well? I got it on full blast.
Oh, well, okay. That's cool then. Maybe
Right,
if you summarize it, then I know the call pretty well. So.
All right, here we go. Here. Are you going to hear? Let's see. Okay. Oh, live? Okay, here we go. Here's part 2.
Very cool. See that you head up insights and analytics, and I'm definitely a big fan of use it a lot, unfortunately, maybe or unfortunately. But I know you guys have an online chat with like wine experts, that type of a thing. Do you look at analytics for those conversations at all, or not really?
Okay, so parts to this. If you remember the call, Heidi. Were you able to hear that a little bit better?
Yeah, no, that was way better. Yeah.
Okay, so part number 1 was this, which familiar with you guys. I use this thing all the time. Is that I'm assuming that's a true statement.
Yeah, it actually is, which is good. I love when that happens. I do try to prioritize those accounts if possible. Things that I've actually used or I'm familiar with makes my calls go a lot better if I can genuinely say, yeah, I've used this, and I have experience with this. And this one was, whatever, a wine store. So I had some familiarity with the brand, and it made it super natural for me to just kind of drop that in as, I know what you guys are up to, and I'm wondering if you're looking at this type of thing.
And you also said, fortunately or unfortunately, quite understand the intent behind that, or maybe that was just some sort of casual language, like, hey, I'm familiar
Well,
with
it's
you guys.
wine. I mean, like, should I be drinking
Right.
that much wine? It's kind of like a joke, like,
Right.
should I really be this familiar with you guys? I don't know.
Great. So a couple things that, again, just from a psych perspective, I think one of the best ways to lower the pressure, which is high on a cold call, is humor in a sort of casual way. Second, real authentic. And third, there's a commonality there. I've actually used your product for, I bleed Cabernet. I don't know. I don't want to say, it's kind of that kind of vibe. So there's going to be sort of a reciprocity muscle that's going to kind of kick in there, which is, oh, we got a customer here calling us. It's not just a salesperson. And then what you do, very eloquently, is what a lot of salespeople don't do, which is you transition into inquiring. So a statement sounds like this. The reason for my call is we've discovered a breakthrough in chat technology that allows you to do this. And the reason for my call on your calendar to share that was sort of a statement-driven, pitch-driven thing versus inquiring, which is asking a question to determine how or if they're doing this today. Now, tell me a little bit about that question. Question, and what was your intent behind it?
Yeah, so the product that we're going for has a few differentiators that I was aware of. I kind of saw that they were using a certain chat bot on their website that I happen to know doesn't give them certain data that what we were selling does. And so I was trying to find out if that was something that's important to him or not, if he's looking at those types of things. And I figured, like, well, if he is, then he's going to kind of be aware that he can't really see what he wants to see, and that'll be a good opener. If he's not looking at that, if it's not for him, then it's kind of like, okay, maybe I have the wrong person, or maybe that's just not a pain that they have at all. It's not relevant to them. So I was just trying to find out if that's a differentiator that could open up the conversation.
Okay, so again, a couple things that are, I think, real brilliant here, just from a thinking perspective, which is you have to have a hypothesis about what is potentially broken. And you keep hearing Heidi say the same word, but I do want to call it out is if. Like, I don't know if, even though we think this is a benefit and a problem, it doesn't really matter if it doesn't matter to him.
Yep.
And letting go of assumptions. Now, why would this matter to him? This idea of being able to see this particular data, just for people for context.
Yeah, so he's a director of analytics, data and analytics. So he may be looking at, the chat functionality to see if there's room for improvement, or presenting that data to his boss or to, whoever the VP is, and trying to show, hey, this is some potential for more conversion. On the website, I'm showing you this data. So I was wondering if he had enough of that when he goes to his boss to be like, be substantial, or if his boss is like, this is nothing. Like, we don't have any, like, we don't have any data here. I wish we had something all in one place, or, I wish it was like clean. And, if that's like a pain that he's kind of facing in his day to day, like, God, I'm not getting enough data, or it's all over the place, or it's going from here to there and hard to deal with, exporting, importing. That was my hypothesis, that he may be having that experience, and that this could be a potential for him to solve that.
How did you get to this point? Because so many people that I know, they're not customers, they haven't done the prospect's job, but you have a very good grasp of the problem, of the potential problem, like really good grasp of it. How did you get problem trained versus product trained?
I'm not sure. That's a good question. I think it's just been a process of me. I I'm always trying to think, well, why would somebody even care about taking this meeting? You know, why would somebody want to do this? I mean, there's a billion different tools that do the same thing. So why why would someone care? Like I personally don't care about much, you know, things that come my way, commercials, you know, anything that's hitting me. I'm like, okay, there's a billion streaming services. What do I care about this one? But if they hit me with like, oh, you know, we have this weird type of movie that like no one else has, you know, and that you like and you've been looking for, you've been talking about, then I'll be like, oh shoot, they have that. And if they're like, oh, and you don't have to pay monthly, we have an annual subscription. I know you hate paying monthly because you keep canceling all your monthly subscriptions because it bugs you. And then I'd be like, oh my gosh. So like I'm just always thinking of, well, what is that point for that person that would make them actually even consider adding something new or like even looking at something when what they have is probably just fine.
Please rewind the last 25 seconds of this podcast and listen to that 4 or 5 times. Because to Heidi's point, no matter what you're selling, people have a streaming service today. So what is it about the streaming service that happens if they do nothing? Potentially. What terrible sort of, well, I got to pay yearly, I got to pay all these monthly subscriptions I don't even want. Well, what's this new thing? It's this new kind of show that I like. And wait, I can just buy an episode. I don't have to get roped into a yearly contract. And it's these indie films, which I love, or these Bollywood films. That's something that's meaningfully different, potentially. And we go back to Heidi's language. We don't know that until we actually have a conversation. Now, because Heidi's leaning back, and because she is inquiring, and because you can feel that she doesn't have expectations, part of this, the prospect just opens up. Everyone talks about closing in sales, but I think the superpower is opening. To this opening right here.
A little bit, I'd say. We're sort of in the process of getting those learnings. We use Zendesk, so kind of downloading that data out of Zendesk and combining it with our internal data. So it's a sort of an ongoing process, I'd say.
Totally. Well,
Okay, I want something else I just want to call out because it might not be apparent. Not once did Heidi step on that person as they were, because I listen to a lot of cold calls and it's exciting, and you're like, oh, we could do that, and you sort of cut the person off. So notice how she, for about 2 beats before she started talking, to see if the prospect wanted to keep talking. So let's see where you go from here, Heidi.
we actually created something to help you out with that and have like a dashboard in one place. We're kind of trying to get some feedback from people in the U.S. It's pretty popular in Europe already. So I was wondering if that's something you might want to check out. Not a pressure situation, but just see how it works for the future.
So there's a couple things here, and again, I don't know if people are picking up on the subtleties of this. Again, the tone is like super chill and relaxed, and there's like we got this kind of thing. Some people in Europe kind of like it. I don't know, maybe you want to check it out. It's just casual, but you're also using a little social proof there, a little sprinkle. And then you're saying, hey, no rush or whatever. And then you use a really great phrase, which is for the future. The reason that I love that phrase is that what it subconsciously says is there's no pressure now. This is just an option. Was that your intent behind that language? When you sort of understand that there's some interest there and you go for this quote unquote ask, talk to psychology behind those words.
Yeah, it's really easy to get excited at that point. So to pull back and be like, hey, you know, sounds like what we're doing could possibly be a fit. Some people like it. You know, we're trying to see if people over here like it. You know, would you want to check it out? No pressure, but to see if that's something you might want to use in the future. That's, it's really kind of hard to do that. It's sort of counterintuitive because you just want to get all excited or maybe talk about, some of the benefits and, oh yeah, this is perfect for you. But I think pulling back right there pretty much sealed the deal on this call, because it was like, if I would have just started pitching, he would have been like, yeah, send me an email or call me next quarter, or we don't have the budget. So I was really trying to really be careful. Like, I did really want to book this meeting because I did see that it was a fit based on what he said, but I had to intentionally not be excited and just keep the same chill. Let's just see if it would be something for a later time. not now.
I'm gonna
Like,
date.
we're not.
I'm gonna date my. I'm gonna date myself here. You might not be familiar. Are you familiar with this movie Mean Girls?
Oh yeah. Oh my
80s.
God. I'm a millennial. I'm an old millennial, I guess.
Okay,
Yeah.
so there's that scene with Regina, and
Mm-hmm.
she is like not giving in the day, right? But she's not really needy. She's sort of indifferent. She's like whatever, and because of that, I mean, she's an awful person in the movie, obviously, but there's something to learn there with because she's so like whatever, and she's not needy. Attracts like all this sort of attention, because neediness is off-putting, especially when it's a salesperson, especially if it's on a cold call. So it's almost like you're like, look, this is this thing over here in Europe. They're using it. It almost subconsciously says, do you want to know what they're doing to kind of stay ahead of the curve? But in a way that doesn't way, like if you want to sit with me at the lunch table, whatever. But if not, dude, I got a lot of more other people that want to sit with me at the lunch table. So it's this law of sort of indifference. Very Regina. When I like, oh, she's kind of like Regina in Mean Girls, in a nice way.
I like that.
So so the prospect leans in here.
Sure.
I'll send you an invite for a meeting with Michael. Okay, cool. Is there anything that you'd like me to tell him that you want to see specifically? Like, are there certain numbers and metrics that you're looking for so that we can make the most out of your time?
Okay. Another phenomenal. Here's the meeting. Get me off the phone. Take, start high-fiving people. What's the intent behind that question?
Yeah, I like to confirm that they do want to have the meeting and then do the bit of discovery. It's kind of my style, as to because I'm literally like hustling there. You probably hear my voice go a little faster because I'm pretty excited and I'm hustling and pulling up different, stuff and booking it and like making sure I'm doing that. But I don't want him to get off the line while I'm doing all that. For one, I want to keep him on the line to confirm that, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I don't want him to just drop off. And then I also am putting notes in to the email I'm going to send to the AE on what he wants to talk about, so that, I actually have that bit to give him. So it's a good meeting and a good call for the AE. And we're actually talking about things that he cares about. So I'm doing my mini kind of discovery there.
And I also liked how you ended it, which was, just to make sure this is, relevant. So we, can tailor it to you. The positioning it as why this matters for him. So again, he unloads.
I would say what we're probably most interested in is thinking about like the lifetime value of customers who interact with the chat, and those versus those who don't. Like, our chat is. We have customer service, but then we also have a recommendations chat. So they're people who are wine experts that are there to help you, non-commission. So it's really. I want to again. This is subtle, everybody, and I don't know if you heard it. He just did there. She goes, that's called an encourager. It's a subtle technique in listening, and she probably does it without even. I'm assuming that doesn't. It's just natural for her. A great listener. So if you're a great listener, you don't have to do any of this stuff because you're just a great listener. But if you're not and you have to work on it like me and some of the other people, if you've been a poor listener your whole life like I have been, encouraging is like, or, oh yeah, that shows that you are still there and listening. Encourager. Heidi, is that, I know it's like sort of asking you how you came up with the song, but like, is that an intentional thing or is that something you just kind of do naturally? These little.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of weird. It is natural for me, and I've had actually sales managers before tell me like, don't do that, or like, that kind of thing. Actually, weirdly enough, but then I actually had some. I mean, I was a teacher, so I had some teaching training too. And with teaching, you do really want to do that, especially teaching language. I taught English to foreign language speakers, and you really do want to encourage them and have these little sounds that you make like, oh, yeah. So like, I just brought that into my sales because I'm like, that really keeps them talking and it makes them feel like they're doing a good job. So that's sort of just like, I look at it as like, I'm a teacher. I'm just trying to get, more out of them and make sure that, they feel confident in, the conversation. So that's just, a natural thing for me from my teaching background.
And by the way, so helps you in your personal life. And in your
a
relationship
lot.
with your friends. So these kind of skills we're talking about, I know we're talking about them in the sort of context of a call, but this idea of being inquisitive and curious and non-assumptive and pausing before talking and using encouragers, superpower for making people feel heard and understood. And when you can make people feel heard and understood, you can get through to people and strengthen relationships in your business and personal life. It's a skill that we're all told to listen, but we might not know how to do it. So this is why I wanted to stop the audio here and just pull that out. Let's keep going.
Obviously, we want them to help people find wine, but it's
Yeah.
not necessarily like a salesperson. So just
Okay.
understand, that interaction.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. Well, we have a few cool things with that too. If you ever don't have somebody that's available, we actually have like product experts that can jump in to give you full coverage. So I can make sure Michael tells you about how that would work and what.
And what's really nice there, I was like, oh, a little teaser, a little sort of coming attractions in a sort of casual way without going into a full demo, because the salesperson, we do that. Let me tell you, and all of a sudden it's a 20-minute call and it sort of fizzles out. So I love the sort of teaser there. And then there's another brilliant question at the end. Here it goes.
What metrics like you'd be looking at and what the suite looks like. Okay, awesome. Anybody else that would maybe want to be on the call that would feel left out, or?
Okay, why that question?
Yeah, it's just to basically get somebody else into the meeting. I mean, it's, as we know, the more people involved, typically they're more likely to show up and be more engaged and be more interested. And I'm not sure. I didn't really ask him if he's the decision maker or anything like that too. So I'm kind of trying to see if he has either somebody that works on his team or works with him that might also be interested. So I'm trying to just multi-thread, get somebody else involved in the conversation if possible. So I usually say that at the end of most calls, like anybody that might feel left out. So, they're like, oh yeah, actually, Bob actually looks at this with me and like, he might want to see that. Yeah, something like that.
We paused. What I thought of when I was listening to this was unlocking a level of a game, right? So that was the first one of like, hey, how you feeling today on Friday? Unlocked. Person opens up. Hey, do you have a second? Unlocked. Hey, use your thing. Hey, got this question. Is this something you're kind of not? And then, hey, got something to show you. You want to see it? They're using it in Europe. No worries either way. Sure, unlocked. And then, hey, what else do you want to see? Unlocked. And then, hey, at the end, is there anyone else? So you'll notice that there's these questions, and Heidi's not doing a lot at once. There's a lot of those sort of questions. And again, it gets back to this sort of like smooth ballroom waltz is what Heidi kind of, Heidi, you've been a pure delight. Thank you for breaking down this call. I hope it inspires people. If people want a little bit more about you, or they want to get your take on things, is there a way for people to get a hold of you, or do they have to sit through a demo?
No demo. You could find me, Heidi Briones, on LinkedIn, if you'd like. I also have a new website I'm launching and kind of building out called bdrresources.com, and it's just a bunch of free resources for SDRs, BDRs, anybody who prospects. Lots of cool stuff and videos, so check that out. I love to, get your feedback, and you can submit resources there too if you'd like. But yeah, LinkedIn would be the greatest. Come message me, connect with me.
Heidi, thank you so much for being so generous with your time. I loved your call, and thanks for your transparency. Listening, got a lot out of it.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for having me, Josh. It's been a pleasure.